Next, we are about to discuss the various banking sector reforms that happened in our banking system after nationalization or in the post nationalization era. Um, After nationalization, um, we could see that very many issues were going on in the banking sector, such as uh, mounting up of NPA, which was a major problem. That is, the number of lost assets or doubtful assets were increasing day by day, which reduced the profitability of the bank and it questioned their sustainability. And therefore, um, in order to curb this issue, the Narasimham committee was formed and they suggested a few measures. And these measures are included as our banking sector reforms. Now, their main recommendation was the prudential accounting standards and the capital adequacy ratio, and along with various other measures. So, moving to the first one, that is the prudential accounting standards. It means that uh, the banks should classify all their assets into uh, standard assets, substandard assets, doubtful and loss assets, and all their income classification or income recognition, asset classification, and certain provisions should be made based on what type of asset the banks have. So, in income classification, they say that all the standard assets or okay, we should for the purpose of income classification, we can classify it basically as performing assets. I'm sorry, performing assets and non-performing assets. Okay, I hope you know the meaning of both these things. Now, in the case of performing assets, the banks can recognize the income on accrual basis. Accrual basis. I hope you know the meaning of the term accrual. That is, this recorded when it is earned. And for non-performing assets, we should recognize the asset in our accounting books only when the income is received. Okay, only when you receive the income, you should believe that you got the income, and then only you should record it in case of non-performing asset. That is the case of income classification. Again, for asset classification, we can go one step further. Apart from this performing and non-performing, we should classify it as standard assets, then substandard assets, then doubtful and loss assets. These are the classifications that we should make for asset classification, and it is based on these classification that we should give provision requirements for our assets also. So moving to the next stage, that is provision requirements. For in case we have a loss asset, that is which is not performing for more than 3 years, then we will call it as loss asset. Then for such assets, the provision requirement is 100%. The entire value will be kept as provision for such assets. Then in case of substandard assets, we should keep a provision of 15% for that percentage of non-performing part. And for doubtful asset, if we have a secured portion and an unsecured portion, the unsecured portion will keep a percentage of 100% as provision. So maybe certain assets will have mortgages with it. So we'll calculate the value. Suppose a person has taken loan for 10 lakh and he has not paid his interest for a few months or a few years, and suppose he has to pay the entire amount of, suppose he has to pay 15 lakhs at present. Okay, this is his due, and he has given um, he had given a fixed deposit statement or fixed deposit receipt, FD receipt, as his collateral, and suppose its value was only 8 lakh rupees. Okay, suppose, or say it was 10 lakh rupees. Okay, so he had given a FD receipt which was 10 lakh rupees, and now he is expected to pay 15 lakh including all his dues. So here what we can do is, for this 10 lakh portion we'll give a provision differently, and for this excess 5 lakh, for this 5 lakh, this is the unsecured portion, for that we'll keep a reserve of 100%. We have already done this in our special accounting classes. So for the doubtful portion we'll keep a provision of 100% itself, and for the remaining secured portion our provision requirements will be like this. That is, if the particular asset is defaulting up to 1 year, then we'll have to keep a provision of 25%. Then 1 to 3 years, then 40% provision should be made. Then if it is more than 3 years, then again 100% provision should be made. This is the provision requirement in case of the secured portion of our doubtful asset. Then this is about the prudential accounting standards. The prudential accounting standards include income recognition, asset classification, and provision requirements, which we explained now. Now the next one is capital adequacy norms. In case of capital adequacy norm, it says that in order to strengthen the capital base of the bank, the RBI has laid down a system of capital adequacy ratio, that is or it is also known as CAR ratio. It is calculated as the share capital divided by, it is divided by risk adjusted value of the asset into 100. Okay, share capital divided by risk adjusted value of asset into 100. This is what we call the capital adequacy ratio, and RBI says that we should have a capital adequacy ratio of at least 9%. As per the regulation of March 2000, it says that we should have capital adequacy ratio of at least 9% in order to say that our bank is strong enough. And this is this capital adequacy ratio is based on the risk adjusted value, that is whatever is our share capital divided by the value of asset, which is the risk adjusted value of our asset, into 100. So it is a percentage of share capital and risk adjusted value. Now what is this risk adjusted value? That is, for all our assets, the RBI has provided a certain risk percentages. So we'll have this risk percentage calculated on all our assets, and then we'll decide on the risk adjusted value of asset. It goes like this, that is, if you have so if you have your assets in bank and public sector institutions, suppose if you have given certain loans to other banks or any other public financial institutions, that is interbank loans. For such interbank loans, they have calculated a risk of 20%. So the risk weight, this is the risk weight. Okay, so 20% is the risk weight. So if you have given any interbank loans, then you will have to assume a risk of 20%, which is the risk weight. Then again, if you have given any advances which is covered by the DICGC or ECGC, that is Deposit Insurance and Credit Guarantee Corporation, which is they give guarantee to our advances. So if our advances are guaranteed by DICGC or ECGC, that is Export Insurance and Credit Guarantee Corporation, so if it is covered in this guarantee, then we can assume that the risk weight is only 50%. 50% is the risk weight. Again, if you have investment in any share capital or shares or bonds of any other banks, that is certain other banks will issue bonds, then the risk adjusted weight is 100%. So risk is 100%. And then, so if you have any assets like your investment in bonds or shares, then you will assume 100% risk weight for such assets. Then also, if you have any advances against any term deposits or life insurance policies, then NSE certificates, Indira Vikas Patra, etc. You should see that all these are provided by the government, or all these things, items, that is NSE or a life insurance policy, all these will never default. So you are sure that you will get that particular amount to you. So in case of such advances, which you have given advances against such assets, then you can assume a risk weight of 0 risk. Okay, that is, you need not expect any way risk for such assets. So this is the type of risk weight given to each assets. And yeah, so based on this, you will decide on the risk weight, and then you will have to calculate the risk adjusted value of an asset, and then we'll calculate the capital adequacy ratio. And only if your, that is, you should have your capital adequacy ratio above 9%. That is the condition.